Good morning, fellow streakers. It's Jeff and Jami coming to you from a new location and destination. That's right, we've made the move from Georgia to Colorado. How you feeling, Jami?
Loving Colorado.
Beautiful outside. The sun rises early in the morning.
It does. The sun rises early in Colorado. I agree. Bright and early. Well, and what's great is that it gets light even before the sun comes up. So it can start getting light really early in the morning.
So we go on our streaking run a little bit earlier than what we did in Georgia.
We do. It's awesome.
And we miss Georgia.
We do miss Georgia. Georgia's beautiful.
You say that with what are some of the things that you think about just right away? I know we're reminiscing just a touch. We're going to get to the topic at hand, but just a touch. We just went through a major change, and that's going to be some of the things that we'll talk about as far as streaking when going through a major change and how that relates to not only keeping a record, but also creating a community. Anyway, just go nostalgic for me for just a second.
Georgia's a beautiful state. It has many beautiful trees. So when we first moved to Georgia, one of the things that I remember thinking is everything in Georgia is alive. Everywhere you look around, things are alive. So there's trees everywhere. There's moss that grows on the trees. There's tons and tons of birds everywhere. At night, there's the tree frogs. There's the fireflies. This time of year, we often get turtles. In the spring, you get the flowers. There's flowers pretty much all the time in Georgia. So it's just in general, it's just a beautiful state.
Absolutely.
And of course, the people are amazing.
Absolutely. Loved the people that we are there. And a little shout out to all of our listeners in Georgia. We miss you guys and are looking forward to catching up with you when we see you again.
And visiting. We'll be back.
We will be back. So moving on to the topic at hand and being now in Colorado and being a true millennial.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I'm offending any millennials out there, but we are living in my mom's home.
Yes, we are. For a period of time, we've moved back in. We actually had to look up online how to show proof of residency when you're living with your parents. I don't know how I felt about that, but that's what we had to do.
That's where we are, folks.
That's where we are right now. But
so if you are living with your parents and are our age, which means, we have 7 children, 3 that are married.
Usually at our age, the parents move in with you.
Yeah, no.
We did it differently.
We just wanted to go a little different, just a little bit different.
So.
And something like this can cause quite a major change. Which can disrupt.
That is the understatement of the century. This has created so much change. Oh my goodness. I can't even begin to tell you how much change this has created. A lot.
Which can be disruptive.
Yes.
So you may have recently read the article that I wrote.
I actually wanted to read it because I thought it was fantastic. So I wanted to go through it and I wanted to talk to you about it, kind of pick your brain about this article.
Okay, great.
So you called it Streams and Swamps, which I thought was fantastic. So I'm just going to read it because it's a 1-minute read. Why is it important to keep a streak going when in the middle of massive change? Can't we just stop for a time, the writing of a sentence or the reading of a paragraph? Is it critical to keep doing and recording laughably small activities when the whirlwind of life is occupied by the disruption of a cross-country move, or the celebration of a new baby being born, or the memorial of a loved one's death? When you step in the water of a clear stream, where your foot lands disrupts the settled soil, causing it to pollute the water. How is that cloud of dirt cleared? By clear, clean, moving water. When a stream is stagnant, it becomes a swamp. In life, we will have massive moments of disruption that stir up the soil in the stream of who we are aspiring to be. Consistent input is the clear, clean, moving water that displaces cloudy water, keeping us from stagnating into a swamp. I love that. So I just wanted to ask what brought that metaphor to mind? Like what? Because those things that you're talking about, a cross-country move, that's what we're doing. The celebration of a new baby being born. We have a grandbaby coming anytime now. And
like
the memorial,
today.
Possibly today. Or the memorial of the loved one's death, which is honestly what precipitated our move. So all 3 of those things are things that...
Right, my father died a year ago.
Yeah, that you are dealing with now. And it has been extremely disruptive. I mean, we are technically homeless. We are living in somebody else's home right now and trying to make that all work. And just the disruption of all of that and what what brought that metaphor of stepping into a stream?
So can I give you a little backdrop of where I wrote this and when I wrote it? So this is just this last week. We were moving cross country and we're staying in hotels because we don't have a home, and moving from Georgia to Colorado, for us, it takes a couple of days. We usually take 2 days and we stay in a hotel. And we were in Mount Vernon, Illinois, and I have a streak of writing at least one article weekly.
Okay.
And I had not done that. And I knew that I hadn't done it yet. And I knew that it was looming and that it was out there. The opportunity had not presented itself for me to be able to take just a little bit of time to write it. I'm laughing because I'm seeing myself. So it's Sunday morning and it's early. I usually get up early before any of the family. Typically, early morning hours for me can be anywhere from 4 to 6 in the morning is when I get up. And the body and the brain just start working. Well, at this moment, the body and the brain started working. And I thought, you know what? Now's the time, because we're not getting on the road just yet, for me to write the article. Well, we're in a hotel room. And in a hotel room, you've got you that were sleeping and 2 other children that were sleeping as well. And I don't like to disrupt everyone else with my morning hours. So I took my computer, I went into the bathroom, I closed the door, I sat down on the floor on a towel and started to write this article.
Lovely. I pictured you like near a stream, not the bathroom floor of a hotel.
Thus, the pollutants that were in the stream.
Gotcha. You're thinking about.
I'm thinking about not necessarily where I was at that moment, but just how disruptive a footstep in a stream, because we've done hiking in our lives. And a lot of times when we're hiking in the mountains of Colorado, you step in some clear streams. And when you step down,
all that
cloud of sediment just comes up, and you can sit there and watch it wash away. And that metaphor kind of came to my mind. I thought, I am in the midst of this. And I started to ask the questions that I started right there at the beginning of the article. I was like, why continue to do this? Why should I sit here on this bathroom floor and write an article because of a streak that I have? Because of a streak that I have. Is it really that important? Right. Is it something that is that significant? And that was the question. And so as I was thinking about that, I thought, yeah, it's really important. It's significantly important, but I don't know why. And the only thing that came to mind was this whole idea of clearing out polluted water. Or, and when I say polluted water, that could be with dirt or sediment or things, industrial pollution, anything. The only thing that gets rid of the pollutant, the only thing, is more moving water that's clean and pure. That's the only thing. There's nothing else. You cannot separate with any degree of expertise the dirt or the minerals or the pollutant from the water. It has to be displaced. And that's what I was so this, as far as writing one article, so my streak, just so you know, write at least one Insight article weekly is at 128 weeks.
Wow.
So I've done that now for, what would that be, over 2 years, 2.5 years. I've written at least one Insight article.
Every week.
And some may look at it on streaking. It doesn't show up on streaking because it's not always about streaking that I write an Insight article. There's other ones as well. So as I was thinking through just what you and I were now doing, I just thought, is it important? Why should I continue to do these?
I love that. As you're talking, I'm thinking about it and these things that are happening, especially the loss of a loved one, when it feels like the whole world kind of comes to a stop, and that the answer is to keep moving. I think of one of my favorite books is Great Expectations. And actually, I'm ready to read it again. But one of the things that I've always taken away from that book.
Who's is that? Author is...
Don't ask me who the author
Charles
is.
Dickens.
Charles Dickens. Thank you. I'm like, don't do that in front of everyone. It's somebody really important and famous that I love as an author, and I can't think of who it is right now. Yes, Charles Dickens. But
isn't that amazing how details like that can just go in a moment, and you could have stated it 100 times.
I know.
Now, between now. That's the fallibility of the brain. Anyway.
So one of my favorite themes of the book is that Miss Havisham has this event where she's left at the altar by the man that she loves, and she stops living, like literally in every way. She never changes out of the wedding dress. She never removes the wedding cake from the room. She just stops living. And
Really?
it's a
I've never read
poignant part.
Great Expectations, so that's amazing.
It's just it's an incredible visual as they walk you into her room, and you just see how everything is decaying. Rats have eaten the cake. Her dress is literally decaying as she's wearing it. It's just this visual of what happens when something tragic in your life happens and you just stop. You're like, I'm not going to move past this. I'm going to stay right in this moment. And that life doesn't, decay happens, and stopping, just life just decayed around her, and she never moved past that moment. And so it's an interesting thing to think of it as a stream, that what clears these moments of disruption, whether they be voluntary disruption where you're moving, or involuntary disruption where something tragic has happened in your life, that the ability to be able to keep moving through it is vitally important, and that's what will eventually, through time, keep you being clear and moving and progressing.
Yeah.
It's a deeply profound thought. So that's why I wanted to read the article, because it's a really great visual of the importance of being able to move forward, but also a recognition of how to do that. And that's, I think, one of my favorite things about streaking that I've brought up so many times that I love, is that there's a lot of what's out there, and I feel like the streaking is a how. So it has helped us through all of those things continue. It's given us a how to be able to be like, how do I get through this? Well, I'm not in the mood. For me, I have a streak. Sorry, I stopped that sentence, but I have a streak to recognize the hand of God in my life, which I also equate a lot with gratitude, like just being able to look around and see something every day that I'm grateful for. And it has been, I have noticed that there have been a couple days during this move that I've had to sit for a lot of minutes, and be like, how have I seen the hand of God in my life today? What has happened that I'm grateful for, that has been good, that I can see is moving me in a direction? And I would not stop and do that if I didn't have that streak. But stopping in the midst of some of these days where I've gotten done and just been like, this day has been really hard, to be able to sit down at the end of the day and look at it from a different perspective, of being to look through the day and be like, hey, it was a hard day, but there's also a lot of other things that happened that I probably didn't notice, And because I'm sitting here for a minute and looking at it, I am noticing it. I wouldn't do that if I didn't have a streak. But that, to me, is exactly what you're talking about with the running water.
As I listen to what you're saying, one of the questions that comes to my mind is it, you talk about having the streak and keeping the streak alive. I think about recognizing the hand of God in your life, for example. And let's say you didn't have a streak around it. What I hear you saying is you might do it, but you wouldn't do it consistently,
right.
And especially when things are disruptive.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Obviously, I want to do it. I made it a streak. It's something that's important to me. So I was doing it occasionally. What I wasn't doing is all the time. And that's why this article that you're talking about is so profound, is that the ability to keep moving when things are disrupted. And it is interesting that, because I think you wrote an article before, not if, but when. Same concept of it changes that mindset from, well, when I have time. I have spent personally in my life a lot of time thinking, well, when I've got time to do this. And streaking has helped me change that perspective to, I don't have to wait for when I have time. I can do something small now.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
a big shift.
Yeah. And I think that the if not when, just to change a little bit, it's not if I have time.
Right.
It's when I'm going to do this. When am I going to plan to do this sometime in the day? I'm going to do it. It's just when.
When.
That's the real question.
It really is changing the if to when.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, and I also think, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but the recognition of being able to accept a small thing, to be able to be okay that today it's going to be small, and I'm okay with that because I'm still doing it. But then also amazed constantly how often that small turns into something much bigger and much more than I thought I would do. And had I thought or planned to do that much, it would have been like, no, I don't have time for that.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I don't have time to do that today.
I don't think we, as I look at what the activities that I do, a lot of times, if I were to think about the time, I don't have time. I mean, when it just comes down to it, for whatever reason, I never have time.
Right.
But I don't know what that is, but
I do not have time for this.
The other part of this, so as you are talking and you asked me a little bit more about what was going through my mind, the other thing that I thought about as far as stepping your foot in the stream, highly disruptive to the sediment and the soil around it. And a stream, what I look at as a stream is it's not a rushing river. It's not rapids. It's not, it's truly a stream that is moving, but the movement is slower. And therefore, when I step down in the stream and it disrupts the soil around it, it takes a little bit of time for that soil to clear. It's not instantaneous.
Right.
It requires many movement. I don't know how to say that, but some time for the movement of the water to go through, for the clean, clear water to go through. And I think that is one of the fallacies that I lived before streaking, was the whole idea that I could clear this out quickly. Or you know what, I'm just not going to do anything right now and it will clear. So that's when the swamp came to mind. Is I thought swamps are all about non-moving water.
Yes.
It's stagnation.
By definition, there's no movement to it.
Right. If you've ever come across a pond that was formed by a stream at one point but then became stagnated, it stinks. It does not, there's the life in it is not the life that I want, if you will.
Right. When we were driving here from Georgia, there's a lot of areas along the road that there's depressions by the side of the road and there's trees that are growing up, but obviously like rain or excessive rain filled that section up and it stays filled with water, but there's nothing flowing into it. The only thing that caused that water to stay there was some excessive raining or overflow of flooding.
Right.
So it's not a continuously moving. And it is amazing how you get slime across the top of it and it just looks really gross.
Yeah.
Because there's no movement to it.
And I think that's how, when in the past, before I've had a streak or streaks as I have them today, I would get stagnant. I would find, and depression would be one of the algae that would grow in my life, and discouragement, because I wasn't consistent in the places where I really wanted to become, or in the activities that led me to who I wanted to be. And therefore, the contrast of those two things, they're both water. They were both formed at some point in time, the stream got clear and continued running, and the swamp stopped. I love what you said, and I'll have to read Great Expectations, because what happened to Miss Habersham was a swamp. She stopped living, and everything started to decay and erode around her. Whereas others, you keep going, and you find your way in the smallest, simplest thing out of this particular disruption. And that's where I get back to the laws of streaking. And we're talking this month and have been on the theme of back to the basics. We talked about having a record. Our last podcast was actually, we bought a blast from the past, one of the ones that we'd done very early on, about just checking the box, and how really I'm okay if you just check the box every once in a while, or just check the box, do it for as many times as you want. What I found is that it always helps me get out of a jam. And therefore, when I look at the laws of streaking, I look at doing something laughably small, keeping a record of it, and creating a community around it. And you know what? It helps clear the sediment, the soil, the pollutants that could stay in my life unless I were doing those things. Because when I have a community around it as well, there's celebration that goes on. There's celebration about what it was that I did that day. One of the things I love in the new version of the app that's coming out And yes, we're loving it. There's so many new fun things that are going to be coming out at the end of the year. The posts that we're making, and there's just a small group of us that are posting right now. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 people.
Right.
But what I've gleaned from what people post about their streak, and this is where the app is different than any other app that I've seen out there, is that I have a streak, and that streak is, for example, what you just said, recognize the hand of God one time in your life. And you decide that day, you know what, I'm going to post about this because it took me a few minutes to come up with what it was, where I saw the hand of God.
Right.
And you post about it, and I read that, or someone else reads that, and it inspires because it's linked to an actual activity that you're doing consistently, and that is clearing the stream, or clearing the sediment out of the stream.
Yep, keeping the water clear,
Mm-hmm.
keeping it moving, keeping it going. I posted last night.
Did you really?
I did, and it was fun because I just had hit a streak of 400 days of do an act of kindness day.
400 days.
400 days.
Congratulations.
Do an act of kindness each day. Something.
That is so cool.
It is cool. It's an interesting
And
one.
by the way, it's really cool because I've been the recipient of some of those acts of kindness, which has been awesome. And you know what? It doesn't bother me that it's your streak. I love it. I love that you are actively, consciously thinking about it, and I get to be the recipient sometimes.
And it's been an interesting thing because the actively conscious thing has been what I've been trying to increase with that streak particularly. And so what I posted last night is that one of the things that I had done, a memory that I have of an act of kindness, was we were on a run and a trash can had flown over and there's some paper, and I stopped on the run and picked up the paper and put it in the trash can.
I remember this.
There. And it was an interesting thing. The reason I remembered that is because I wouldn't have thought to stop and do that before. Or if I did, sometimes that small thing didn't seem like it would make enough of a difference in life. But to look at that as an act of kindness in my mind, like the reason I'm telling you this is because I went through this whole thought process in my brain where I'm like, is picking up a piece of trash is that an act of kindness? I've loved the process that I go through and the things that I'm willing to accept, and how being kind has become more of a conscious thought.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we were so
Can you
fast.
believe that?
That
Yeah,
was
it's
great.
pretty much done. I've enjoyed. Thank you for asking me about the article. I appreciate
Thank you for
that.
writing the article. That
You
has
bet.
been a wonderful visual that I will keep as I keep moving forward. The recognition that I'm moving the water.
Moving the water, clearing the
Keeping it
sediment, keeping the water clear. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed the conversation. We're going to talk next time probably about community, unless something else comes up. But I think that's where we go through law number 3. Until we talk again, feel free to reach out to us, Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
Jami, Jami, at streakingmastery.com. Or you can follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Download the app.
oh man, it's coming. Download it now and you'll see the upgrades coming up. But it's going to be great. Or streakingmastery.com. Until we talk again.
Streaking.
It's too simple not to do. It's the